Are you contemplating making a career change? Then you've come to the right place. My name is Leah and I am a life coach. I'm also the founder of Life Remade. And at Life Remade, we specialize in helping people in a holistic way to make career transitions, relationship transitions, and even improve their mindset and confidence. But today I want to focus in on the concept of whether or not it's time to make a career change. I think the decision to make a career change is such a big one and it really weighs on a lot of people. So I'm going to cover some things that you might want to consider, some steps that you could take to make that decision more clear for you, whether or not it's time, whether or not it's even worth it, and what to even shift towards if you do decide to make a career change. So let's get started. First, you need to recognize the signs. So if you're feeling for a prolonged period of time, and I mean this is a reoccurring feeling over and over again for months on end, and maybe it's even just a month, but it needs to be a consistent pattern of frustration, feeling stuck, feeling like something just is off, maybe feeling a bit undervalued. Sometimes we can feel really uncertain about whether or not this is the right place for us. So it doesn't have to be anything really traumatic feeling. It can be just as simple as like having a constant question mark over our heads. And when we pay attention to the signs in this way, what happens is we are allowing our inner knowing, our intuition, our instincts to also consider how we feel in our careers. I think a lot of times careers are only associated with our intellect and how much we can think through things, problem solve, achieve, do. But more often than not, I speak to people who want to make a career change because they feel a certain way, not because they're thinking a certain way. They feel undervalued, they feel small, they feel stagnant. So pay attention to those feelings and have them be a part of the signal that's coming up for you of whether or not this is the right career for you and whether or not it's time to make a change. Once you recognize the signs and sort of emphasize the importance of listening for yourself to those signs, then you can move to the next step, which is assessing the current situation. So you're hearing the signs, you're feeling some type of way. It's been happening for, a consistent amount of time now. Now it comes time to look at what are we actually dealing with here? Why am I feeling this way? Where am I going with this career? Are the values that I need to be feeling in my career present at this space? I think I want to share a personal story with you right now because I think it's really kind of nice to hear other people who've been in a similar position. But for a really long time, I felt, before I became a coach, I felt really stagnant in my career. I felt like what I was doing before was I was in real estate and I was specifically managing properties, rental properties. So when I was in that position, it wasn't a terrible job, but I didn't feel valued. I didn't feel like I was helping people. I didn't feel like I was growing or that there was any room for growth. It felt a bit lacking in terms of creativity. I just kind of felt like a cog in the wheel, and I didn't really feel of service. So if you'll pay attention to the story that I'm saying, I'm naming things like service, like creativity, like growth. These are all values that were not being met for me, that were very important to me at the time. So when you are assessing your current career, pay attention to the things that you feel are lacking. Those are real needs that you absolutely should validate. Maybe it's as simple as recognition, not feeling recognized, not feeling valued. Maybe you want to be more challenged, right? Those are all values. So assessment is so important when it comes to this process. So once you have assessed what it is that the situation is showing you, then you need to start to explore your options. And when you're in this exploration phase, so this is step 3, you'll be looking at new industries, you'll be getting more creative. Sometimes people think that if they make a career change, it's just from one company to the next, and that's totally fine. But I would challenge you to consider options that you haven't necessarily thought of yet. I think the safe bet is to go from, kind of make a more lateral move for a career, and that's totally fine. That may be what you end up doing. It may make the most sense ultimately, but consider all your options. Consider talking to people who may offer you different perspectives, different ideas. It's just good to have the full scope of what's available to you before you make a decision and then go full force into that. So when I was deciding to become a coach, I had no idea what I wanted to be. I was exiting that old career with property management, and I was thinking to myself, well, what am I not seeing here? What options are there available to me? Do I just go to another property management company? Do I backtrack and go to what I was doing even before property management? Like, what do I have available to me? And so when you're exploring your options, it's important to look at what's already available to you. What are your strengths? What do you naturally do that people have complimented you on? What is your educational background? What kind of niche things are you interested in right now? And it's when you take all of this into consideration, you'll be able to open up doors that you hadn't even considered before. So once you've explored your options, then make some practical considerations. So sometimes I work with people who are on the verge of making a career change, but they're also like 2 years out from their retirement, or they're in their 20s and they've been working at the same place since the beginning of, the time they've ever started working, and they don't have any other experience elsewhere. So these are 2 very different phases to be in. And so when you make practical considerations, you need to look at, where am I in my timeline of things? A person who is retiring and working on, solidifying their retirement may not want to make a career change right away. They may want to just figure out a better way to manage their career and sort of stick things out for the last year or 2 and make an exit strategy. That's a career transition, is retirement. I mean, for sure, but it's something that, you need to consider, because it's not going to be the same for everybody. A lot of people make career changes in their 40s or late 30s. And this is like a really common thing that you'll see, as after you've gone through your 30s, you're kind of looking at the next, half of your life in a career. Typically, people retire in their mid 60s. And so you're kind of thinking about, like, where do I go from here? How do I want to spend my working life for the next 30 years or so? And these are all things to consider, practical considerations. There is no rush, I will say that. So when you are thinking about making a career change and you're thinking about your values and you're starting to get really, amped up for this change to come, I would stress to not make any impulsive decisions. Many times people in their 20s who are going to make a career shift, it's really nice to take your time when thinking about what's next and how to get there. Do you need any extra skills and things like that? So really taking your time and looking at things from a practical mindset, kind of zooming out a bit, is really important. Then we come to the next step, which is preparing for the leap. So when you're preparing for your career change, that might look like, again, what kind of skills do I need? Do I need to go back to school? Do I need to have some special training? Do I need to ramp up my resume? Do I need to work on my interview skills? Do I need to build a website or, spruce up my LinkedIn? Like, what are the things that need to take place in order for you to prepare for the change to happen? Do you need to get your budget checked out to make sure that you're able to ask for the right amount of money, or looking at, comparable careers to see what people even are making in that field? Just all things to consider to help you prepare. This shouldn't take too long. This preparation phase, I think sometimes people get stuck in because it's kind of like right before the big leap. And so we kind of start to fixate on being overly prepared for everything, and this can inhibit action. So I will say, when you're in the preparation phase, it shouldn't take very long. You should be able to set up a plan, get your ducks in a row, figure, what to do, unless you're planning on going back to school or doing a training or whatever. So that would be dependent on time for sure. But yeah, creating a plan is super important. And then take action. So the final step is obviously to do the thing, to get uncomfortable, to put yourself out there. And I think what can really help with this is a timeline. So really making sure, like, okay, I'm going to give myself a year or a year and a half or 6 months to make this transition, to find this new career that I've planned out, that I've set out to get for myself. And making sure you're taking decisive action along the way. So don't get complacent here. This is like kind of where your edge might be met. You might want to give up if you've been, getting rejected from interviews, or you might want to become complacent and sort of let go of that forward momentum if you're not seeing change happen fast enough. And this is often like right before the big change happens and the breakthrough kind of comes in. So push yourself to stick to that timeline, to stick to your discipline, action taking, and look at the different milestones that you'll need to sort of check off your list as you go forward, right? So don't look at this as like, I need to reach this destination, but look at it also as if you're on a journey, because you absolutely are. And it shouldn't all be so focused on the end result, but also how are you growing as a result of all of these steps that you're taking? What are you discovering about yourself? What standards are beginning to, raise up because of all of this? So it's important to acknowledge yourself in the journey as well, and make sure you get support from people who believe in you, from coaches, from mentors, from those who have done this before you. It's so important when you're in this vulnerable place to feel supported and encouraged, and like people believe in you, because that self-doubt can really wreak havoc on your progress when you're doing this. So I hope this was helpful. I do have a career blueprint that you can download below. It just kind of helps you to figure out, is it time for a change? How do I know? How can I make this a successful change? So I hope you enjoyed today, and best of luck going forward. You've got this.